This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started, risk-free, at greenlight.com/get started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get started.
Well, because the implication there is that Black Adam is stronger than Superman, and he's not. Okay, he's just not.
They were just plugging the movie. That's all.
Well, plug it with the truth then.
10, 9, 8, 7.
Oh my God, I'm so bored. Hurry up.
Seriously, it is a 10-second countdown.
Do a 5-second countdown.
That's not how space...
Guys, what are you doing?
Oh, hey, Noah. So, you know how I'm always trying to think of like awesome and innovative ways to promote our podcast?
Is that what we would call it?
Yeah, one time you ran a pirate ship into our studio.
Anyways, this week I was thinking about the essay and it came to me. What's the best way for us to be famous? Do the first podcast from space. Space.
I'm going to do my part upside down. I'm so excited.
He's going to be upside down.
Okay, guys, no, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but you can't just launch yourself into space.
Yeah, the first crewed flights into space cost millions of dollars. They use their best minds of their time. I don't know what you're working with here, but it's definitely not going to get you in space.
Oh, no, this is actually the Russian space shuttle.
It's the real one.
Seriously?
Yeah. Got it on eBay.
Okay, how much did you guys pay?
$6.
Not a lot.
Yeah, no, that actually tracks. Go ahead.
All right. Let's do it.
Yeah.
10.
Faster. Do the 5. Do the 5.
Now I have to start over.
Start over faster. Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, a podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Heath, and I'll be hosting this story about alleged space travel in 1961.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't buy it. Christ. We hadn't even invented a soda can top that doesn't stab you in the hand when you open it yet. But let's go ahead and meet the panel, see what they have to say about this. First up,
Won't be in the hand,
our
though.
two
No kidding.
podcastronauts who are clearly in on the cover-up,
Okay.
Cecil and Noah.
You can hide literally anything in my Castro-like beard,
Yeah.
so that does make sense. I got a whole rocket in here.
I don't have a beard, so I have to use my grassy knoll when I want to hide.
Yeah.
And also joining me are a man who definitely needs to take his protein pills and another who needs to put his helmet on. Eli and Major Tom.
How much does another big government infringement on my freedom to endure severe American-style head trump?
Fuck yeah. Yeah, and eating your own cum is a protein pill, then I guess I'm banned from the Olympics.
Well, welcome to the podcast, new listener. Hope you enjoy this show. This is
Noah, let's just start right here, right away. What person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event are we going to be talking about today?
Eli eating his own cum.
Yeah, I'll do a whole episode.
Okay. I was
I quit the
surprised
show.
essay. No. Yuri Gagarin.
Okay, great. Space travel, Etruscans, stupid, boo. We have a weird format. I don't know. Like, I'm interested in space travel.
I wanted to do incredulous. You guys
And
wanted to do
somebody
incredulous.
has,
Yeah. Stolen incredulous.
Okay, Noah. So who was Yuri Gagarin?
So Yuri Gagarin was the first human being to journey into outer space, and perhaps even more impressively, the first person to return safely to the Earth.
Yeah, it is nice that those are the same first, because they didn't have to be. So that's
Very much did not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say that of all the people to ever crawl into the tip of a missile to be hurled skyward, Gagarin did it. And I think the English language is ready for this word. He did it the ballsiestly. cannot be overstated how very climbing into the part of the rocket where the warhead goes this really was.
That's literally what happens.
No, the launch vehicle the Vostok program used was an ever so slight adaptation of the R-7 Semyorka intercontinental ballistic missile.
Okay, so beanbag chair and bottle of water, no explosives. Okay, check.
Well,
Done. Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
No explosives above this line, anyway. Yeah. But that means that basically this whole program started when some guys were launching an ICBM, and one of them turned to the other and said, "You're gonna be fucking awesome."
You could just get down there, hold real tight with your legs, saw it on a movie. Don't worry. It happens.
All right, we finally invented bubble wrap this year, so yeah, shooting myself into the cosmic abyss with a WMD to find the infinite gravity loop. Yeah, that's the next logical step. Let's do this. This makes sense. 1961, this is real. This definitely happened.
Do not worry. We aimed you at America, so if it goes wrong, we win.
All right, so Yuri was born in a rural area just west of Moscow. He was born in March of 1934 near a town that was then called Gzhatsk.
Oh, gosh.
And yeah, to give you an early taste of how important this guy's going to be to Russian national pride, these days that town is called Gagarin. Keep in mind that the Soviet Union is all at 12 years old when Yuri is born, and they're not exactly running on all cylinders yet. So the state infrastructure, even relatively close to a major city, is virtually non-existent. And his parents worked on a collective farm and probably would have been classed as peasants a couple decades earlier.
Okay, Noah, I'm trying to decide if living in a Soviet Union not running on all cylinders is better or worse than one that was like peak Sovieting.
Oh, better. Absolutely better. Yeah. So long before he orbited the Earth from 203 miles up, Yuri was already badassing at a pretty high level. He was a bit too young to fight in World War II, in any official capacity anyway, but he was a bit too in between Germany and Moscow to avoid it altogether. In fact, when little Yuri was only 7 years old, Nazi soldiers came to his hometown and German officers took over the Gagarin residence. His parents were allowed to build a mud hut in the backyard to house their family for the damn near 2 years of occupation that would follow.
Jesus fucking. My kids wouldn't last 1 hour in a mud hut that didn't have Wi-Fi and Yo Crunch Oreo yogurts.
Right? Right?
That's really good yogurt.
It is good.
That's
yogurt.
good stuff, yeah. But brought to this week's episode of the Citation Needed, brought to you by...
We're kidding. We don't have ads. You can buy an ad spot, though, whenever you want. Buy an ad spot.
You can buy us Oreo yogurt.
It'll come right after Eli talks about eating this cum, but, we'll throw it at it. Man. All right, but little
Better than
Yuri
Yo Play
didn't...
Yo Crunch yogurt. Same amount of crunch, though. Same amount of crunch.
Yeah.
Why is it so dry?
I'm very sick. I'm very sick.
All right.
Black Flex.
Crackling.
So now...
Feels like it hurts.
All right, so now little Yuri didn't take the Nazi occupation lying down. After one particularly sadistic German soldier tried to hang Yuri's little brother, he decided to take up a career in sabotage. I know he was almost entirely uneducated. He'd been going to school for less than a year before the Nazis moved in and closed the school down, but he was mechanically inclined, and he realized that the batteries that they used for their tanks were an easy target. So he would pour soil into them while they were waiting to be recharged, and in a move that seems almost like a gritty reboot of Home Alone, he would randomly mix the labels on their chemical supplies.
Nazi opens a door, a can of Zyklon B swings down and smashes him in the face.
And all this before he got his sabotaging degree. Unbelievable.
Right?
Unbelievable.
Right? Okay, you joke, but that was definitely a Russian core curriculum class right there. So eventually, Yuri's older brother and sister were shipped west by the Nazis as slave labor. Now, ultimately, the two of them would escape and then on their way home get conscripted by the Russian army before they could make it. But the Gagarin family assumed that they were dead when they weren't heard from again. After that, Yuri gave up for a period and refused to eat, and he refused to work for the Nazis. That resulted in the 9-year-old getting beaten within an inch of his life, and he'd spend the rest of the war at the hospital where he recovered, first as a patient and then as an orderly.
I get it. I had a note to get out of swim class because I was susceptible to colds at that age. I understand.
Same.
I understand.
Tough story.
It's like working as an orderly after being the patient at the hospital, the same thing as like doing the dishes because you couldn't pay for your meal at the restaurant.
Yeah, right, yeah. Pretty much.
Better get a mop.
So on March 9th of 1944, which was Yuri's 10th birthday, the Red Army blew through the area and routed the Nazi occupiers. And, while ousting the Nazis was generally a good thing for Allied countries, Yuri was trading Hitler for Stalin. So he was immediately put to work helping the Soviet army hunt and clear landmines.
Sorry, kid, your whole life's going to be about mud until you enter orbit. That's what you
Right.
I guess you could say he went from ground control to Major Tom.
Oh, nice, dude.
Cecil.
Nice.
Right.
Bravo. Well done.
Oh,
Well done.
the entire episode
Well
was a
done.
setup for that, and I didn't even know it. Now,
Well done.
I should emphasize at this point just how devastated the USSR was in the wake of World War II. I mean, I know we all know and all, but Russia is a country that was barely a decade off of 7 years of violent revolution at the beginning of this thing, and that came on the heels of the first 3 years of World War I. So even before the entire western half of the country was leveled by the Nazis, it was already pretty fucked up. So it took a while for them to get things like schools up and running. It was 1946 before Yuri could return to school in any fashion at all. And even then, it was a makeshift school that taught the kids to read from a discarded Russian military manual. But to be clear, the kid was 12 years old when his formal education started.
Yeah, and you do not want to know about the things that Yuri saw Jack and Jane do. You do not want to know.
Oh.
But over the next few years, the school improved a bit.
Oh, they got 2 manuals?
Oh, well, let's not get crazy over here, okay?
Is 100% better.
A former Russian airman joined up to teach math and science, and it turned out that Yuri excelled at both. He'd always been interested in aircraft, but having a former airman as his favorite teacher turned that interest into an obsession. So at 16, he went to work at a foundry because Russia, but he maintained his interest in airplanes. And when he was 18, he volunteered at a local flying club for weekend training and learned to fly a biplane. One thing I haven't mentioned about Yuri yet is that he was an exceptionally short dude. As an adult, he was all of 5'2" or 157 centimeters.
Yeah, that kind of thing happens when you're eating mud soup for 2 years.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. He was short, though, compared to the other mud soup eaters. and while most fields of professional badassery aren't super accessible to short dudes, fighter pilot is a notable exception. So in 1955, Gagarin was accepted into the first, oh, God, that's a lot of consonants in a row. Okay, the first Chkalovsky Higher Air Force Pilot School. And he was actually so short that he almost failed out of the school early for not being able to see what was going on over all of those instruments. But his instructor saw enough promise in him to bend the rules and let him complete his evaluation essentially in a little booster set.
That's adorable. That's so cute.
That is adorable.
Thrusters, online, phone book, sitting on it.
Right, yes.
Okay, who put the sippy cup in my cockpit? Fuck you.
Who picked volleyball again? Damn it, you guys. Goose.
Nice.
I must be this tall to fly the plane? Really? Really? Fuck you. A clown?
Take your clown.
All right. So by 1957, Gagarin completed his training and he was flying solo for the Soviet Air Force. But the whole idea of what flying meant changed considerably that year, because 1957 was also the year that the Soviet Union first launched Sputnik, regardless of what Heath will tell you. And I don't know that people today can really appreciate just what a big fucking deal that was at the time. Right? Launching a satellite into outer space was so impossibly science fiction that some uneducated people simply refused to believe it.
Interesting.
Altogether.
Very uneducated.
For years
Very
afterwards.
uneducated people. Very uneducated.
But you could tune in and listen to the motherfucker pass overhead if you had a shortwave radio, and people all over the world did just that.
Yuri's like, why's it got to be shortwave? What are you saying? What are you saying?
And once they accepted that a machine could be launched into orbit long before there was any conceivable purpose beyond bragging rights, they wondered if they could do the same thing with a dude.
Yeah, at least the dude could do some, I don't know, comedy during drive time.
All right, so when it came time to select potential cosmonauts for what they were calling the Vostok program, Soviet physicians insisted that the candidates be qualified Air Force pilots, which, if you think about it, is actually kind of weird because, like, nobody was going to fly the space capsule, at least nobody who was in it. It was just going to be strapped on a rocket, and all the pilot had to do was sit tight and hope not to die. But they insisted that Air Force pilots had relevant skills like exposure to high G forces and familiarity with ejection seats. both of which
That's
seem
just like a
relatively
button,
easy
right?
to catch up on. Yeah, right, exactly, a lever, but yes. But there was also some more sensible qualifications they used, like intelligence, fitness, and comfort in high-stress situations. They also had to be men between 25 and 30 years old, couldn't be taller than 175 centimeters, it's 5'9", and couldn't weigh more than 72 kilos or 158 pounds.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's fun how every airline since makes the seats in coach just like a Russian rocket from 1961, right? I love that. It's fun for me. I have to get in like I'm moving a couch through a Hobbit door at a weird angle.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes we have to gate check in
Yeah,
when we get
right,
there.
right.
It's a whole thing.
So in all, the Soviet program interviewed 200 pilots that met the criterion. And by interview, I mean asked a bunch of questions, sure, but then sent them through this grueling battery of physical tests that seemed designed to see how much vomit they could produce.
Oh, man, I missed my calling.
Well, no, they weren't looking for the most vomit.
Withdrawn then. Withdrawn.
Okay. All right. And no, to be fair, there is no amount of money I wouldn't pay to watch Eli endure, quote, a grueling battery of physical tests.
Eli and the little G-force machine. Okay, Patreon,
my God.
goal.
It's a low
Eli
number.
does
Comes in,
astronaut
do
training.
5 burpees.
Absolutely. I got a formula, baby, man. That's a low number.
All right, so in all, 29 people were approved by the military physicians, 20 of whom were deemed sufficiently loyal to the state to be selected.
Wait.
Ooh.
A full third of them were just like, yeah, I'm just not that into you. I just like the physical abuse of this thing.
Sure.
No, like a third of them had a grandmother that was Ukrainian, right? So, like, yeah. So, and while they weren't told at the time that this was about flying into space, they were being selected for intelligence. So it's safe to say that they'd pretty much all figured it out by the time they got to the end of the process.
These guys are getting shot out of a catapult and their unlooked at resume is just a cloud of papers behind you.
Right? You know what?
Why did they run those guys through the tests? Like they were already off the list because of the Ukrainian grandma?
cheeks go.
Yeah, exactly. So let the disloyal ones make a little puke too, I guess. So in January of 1960, the USSR established the Cosmonaut Training Center, dooming America to the far less cool-sounding astronaut. We're a bunch of pricks that couldn't just use the name that the guys who invented cosmonauting came up with, even if it dooms our space guys to have ass in their job title forever. Now, the resources were limited, as were the trainers, so it was decided that rather than try to train all 20 people together, they'd select the top 6 candidates for accelerated training. The men selected would be known as the Vanguard 6.
Oh, that would really inspire a lot of confidence, huh? Oh, hey, so we're going to light about 500,000 gallons of rocket fuel under your ass and shoot you into space at a speed of about 5 miles a second. But we're short on cash for the project, so we're going to need to make some cuts around here.
Yeah.
We're doing a GoFundMe.
Like I said, man, the ballsiest leaf.
fuck.
Now, from all accounts, it seems like from the beginning, the job was Yuri's to lose. During the training, there were several points where each candidate would be asked to secretly vote for the person other than themselves that they thought was most qualified. Gagarin won all of those votes by wide margins. And on April 9th of 1960, the head of cosmonaut training made it official. Yuri Gagarin would be the first man in space. Or he would blow the fuck up.
Or maybe both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burning out his fuse up there alone. Rocket Man, Elton John. But before we find out, we're going to take a quick break for some apropos of nothing. So, what do you guys think they want?
I don't know. Maybe they're going to limit the number down again?
It's about fucking time. I hope they get rid of Puke Tube over here, right? Puke Tube?
Yeah, Yuri,
Huh?
look, we get it, huh?
Hey, I ever tell you guys about the time I fought a bunch of Nazis when I was 9?
You have, Yuri. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to tell it again just in case anyone hasn't heard it. So, there I am, right? I'm 9 years old. And
Gentlemen,
I'm getting
gentlemen.
punched.
Yes,
Sir, right here.
I have gone over your secret ballots for who you'd most like to see launched into space. And Yuri, your comrades have chosen you for every poll, each and every poll. So you will be the first cosmonaut in the atmosphere.
Fuck yes! You guys love me. I knew it.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Are you saying that when you asked who we wanted launched into space, you meant literally? Because, like, that's the mission?
That's right. That's what was on the ballot. Yes.
Oh. Any chance I could vote again just in case new information has changed my
I would like
vote?
to also
Yes,
do that.
please.
Yep.
Vote.
There is no need for that, comrade. It's obvious Yuri is the man for the job.
Fuck yeah, I am. Hey. I'm gonna miss you most of all, PukeTube.
Okay. Enjoy space.
And we're back. When we left off, it was almost 0 hour, 9 a.m.
A little after,
And Noah
actually.
was already high as a kite by then. Out of the game.
Yeah.
Well, what's next?
All right. Okay. So a quick word on how stupid fucking dangerous this was. I mean, like, all of us have been alive long enough to see that blowing up is an occupational hazard for astronauts, right? The last major accident we had in the U.S. was in 2003 with a space program that was 4 decades old and then some.
Allegedly.
Right. So even today, the fatality rate of astro/cosmonauts is 3.2%. Yeah, about 1 out of every 33 people who has ever tried to go to space died during that trip. And it's not like this endeavor started at peak safety, right? Like, by 1961, Russia had launched 24 spacecraft. 12 of them blew up on the launch pad.
In Soviet Russia, coin flips you.
So I looked up the plan for this rocket, and I would literally have preferred a Wile E. Coyote drawing if I was Yuri Gagarin.
Yeah,
seriously.
Oh my God.
It's
It's
just a
amazing.
missile with some up arrows and a parachute with some down arrows.
Yep.
And at the end of the parachute ride, I'm pretty sure they drew a flattened out dead guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
People,
Clearly dead.
Heath put the picture in the show notes, and it really,
this is real.
really looks like that. They didn't even get a guy who could draw.
Oh, well.
Not really. All right, but so here's the
I
fucked
vote
up
for
thing.
Trump.
though.
So mean. So mean.
So, all right, so here's the
It's
fucked
just
up
a
thing, though.
fucking, seriously, it's just like rocket goes like, "Meow," and then you just fucking, I don't know, you go out the side like, "Meow." That's the picture I'm looking at.
I will use it as the show for the episode. Just look at the
so
episode
great.
image and you will see it. I will use it for the
Fucking
episode.
amazing.
Is
But so-
schematic.
It looks like it's hastily drawn on the back of a napkin.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
it genuinely looks like a back of a napkin.
Some
drawing.
guy right before the really we're to send somebody to the space meeting was
no,
like,
like this. Like this. We're going to do it like this.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah. This extra
This is
missile-
doing coke and drinking a bunch at a bar and being like, no, I'm going to do space flight. Look at this drawing I made on this napkin. I'm the
All right,
head
but
of the
so-
Russian space program.
All right, so but now here's the most fucked up part. Like, so blowing up on the launch pad was actually one of the best worst case scenarios, right? Because, like, in that instance, it's like 5, 4, 3, dead. You don't even know. You don't even know
Yeah.
that 2 is missing. In spaceflight, there are all kinds of worse ways to go. Take, for example, the retro rocket. Okay, so the spacecraft that Yuri is going to be in, the Vostok 1, doesn't have a lot of rocket power of its own. It's being strapped on the top of a rocket that has a rocket under it that has 4 rockets strapped to its
okay,
side.
no. Are we sure these were rocket
Look at the drawing,
scientists?
damn it. No, but that's how the rocket is fucking powered, how the spacecraft is powered. It has a couple of little thrusters to keep the spin under control itself, but its main thruster is this retro rocket. And that has just enough oomph to slow his spacecraft down enough so that it'll fall back to Earth. But because of weight constraints, there is no backup on that motherfucker.
Dude, what?
Well, this is
Yeah,
the craziest
if it
thing.
fails to fire, he just keeps orbiting.
No, it's relatively infinite, no?
Well, so no, it would decay. They put a 10-day supply of food and water on board with him in the hopes that should the retro rocket fail, the natural degradation of his orbit would bring him down within like a week and a half or so. But again, 10 days was chosen because that's how much weight they could devote to it, not because that's how long they thought it would take.
He's just cutting weight the day before like it's an MMA fight. He's in a sweatsuit. I'm bringing these fucking Cliff Bars too. Fuck off. I lost enough pounds. Be an asshole.
All right, so,
And this
then there's also-
rope, the sheet rope that I made that I can climb down. No need to.
Now,
I
there's
didn't
also
think
this
that
minor
hanging
problem.
wouldn't work up here.
No,
It's just pointless.
He's just saying,
I flung around by his neck.
this is actually comfortable. I like this. This is okay. I like this.
Because it keeps you from moving too far to the left. Now, okay, so there's also this minor problem of communication. So we didn't exactly have the level of international cooperation in spaceflight that we have come to expect today. In later Vostok missions, the Soviets would keep planes in the air all around the world so they could communicate directly with the cosmonauts. But in Yuri's case, they were just relying on ground stations, and all of those ground stations were located in the USSR. That meant for a substantial chunk of his journey, he was just on his own.
Okay, we're going to shoot you out of this cannon, but we won't be able to talk to you mid-flight. That's going to be a problem for you?
Yeah, man. I think in space, like, you're on your own no matter who you're chatting with. Right? Like, I have a problem
Right,
in
fair, but-
space. You are not here to help.
Yeah, well, okay, right. No, but keep in mind, like, they're the ones steering his fucking ship, right? So
A little to the
after-
ground, please.
yeah,
Is too
A little
high
more
up
down.
in space.
So
F podcast is okay. Adnan did it. Why do people think he did not do it? It's crazy. It's crazy, people.
all right, so after a training regiment that he later compared to training for the Olympics, the day of the launch arrives, April 12th of 1961, 60 years and 2 days ago. The day before, the whole launch assembly, that is the 6 ballistic missiles that have been strapped together with a tiny little house on top, was wheeled into position and visually inspected, and they chose 9:07 as the launch
Wait.
time.
9:07? Why not 9 o'clock? That's stupid. See, this is why Elton John wasn't singing about you. He was doing something else.
actually had
9:07
to
a.m.
do
doesn't
with-
fit into lyrics. That just doesn't flow. Stupid.
The sun over Africa would be ideal at that moment for them to calibrate their instruments. Anyway, but that morning, Yuri was visibly scared shitless. He was examined by a doctor prior to the flight who later recalled, quote, Gagarin looked more pale than usual.
More
He was
pale than a
unsocial
usual Russian.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so white as a fucking sheet. Yeah. Continuing the quote, he was unsociable and quiet, which was not like him at all. He would answer by nodding or a short yes to all questions. Sometimes he would start humming some tunes. This was a different Gagarin. We geared him up and hugged, and I said, Yuri, everything will be fine. And he nodded back. End quote.
And then he blinked out, help me, in Morse code.
Yeah, right.
I hugged him and said, "Oh yeah, is he gonna be fine?" I tell you what, then Doc, why don't you get on top of the bomb? I'll stay down here. I'll give you a hug
Yeah.
and tell
Okay,
you
rock,
everything
paper,
will be
scissors for
fine.
ground control. Come on.
Yeah, right. All right. So one of the unknown variables here is weightlessness. So a lot of people get this wrong. You're not weightless in space because there's no gravity out there. You're weightless because you're in orbit. Technically, orbit is just a very stylish form of falling. So the appearance of weightlessness comes from the same place it comes from when a person skydives. You're already going the same speed as gravity would pull you. But at
acceleration
the time,
due to gravity.
well, yeah. Okay,
Speed
thank
of gravity is the speed
But-
of light. So
but at the time, they didn't know what that would do to the human body. There was fear, for example, that it would deform the shape of your eyes and you would be temporarily or even permanently blinded if you were up there too long. There was a fear that it would fuck with the circulation of your blood and make you pass out. And there was a list of concerns like that a mile fucking long. So the solution that the Russians came up with was a fully automated system that would be controlled by people on the ground. So again, the vast majority of Gagarin's job really was just not die.
Okay, don't worry, buddy. If your eyes explode, we got your shift covered. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yuri's just like, seems like we could do a run of this with, hear me out, without me in it, right? Maybe a dog. I hear Americans are doing a monkey first.
Eli, I
could do a
think you are
monkey.
severely overestimating the value of individual Soviet lives. Like, this is the people who had just won a war they should not have won by just throwing human kindling on top of the fire until they smothered it in screams.
It's fair.
Also, didn't they lie about that dog? They sent Laika to space, and then they pretended that Laika didn't get burned up by some sort
Yes.
of like super hotness.
Yeah,
They were like,
yeah.
no, he was cool. He
He had
died
a-
of
yeah,
He had
natural
a
actually
very,
causes.
very, very hot farm somewhere. Very warm farm.
He is clearly good boy.
It's going to be a long, long time.
All right, so they tucked Gagarin into the ship about 10 minutes after 7 a.m., and then he would sit there for what had to be the longest 2 hours in the history of any goddamn body's life while they run all their systems checks and everything. But somehow he managed to stay calm throughout. His medical data is still available, and apparently his pulse never went above 64 beats per minute.
That's impressive.
Right, like mine went over that reading about this shit.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. I just looked at my Fitbit. My heart rate hit 119 opening a can of Pringles too hard.
Right? All right, so the main engine fired at 9:07, and Yuri famously shouted, instead of like the affirmative or whatever, he shouted, Poyakali, which I've seen that translated a half dozen ways, but it basically means like, let's do this shit. Okay, it was a very common man expression that means like, let's roll, and it reassured the Soviet propaganda machine that they had chosen the right guy.
Okay, Moscow, 9:07, YOLO. You're fired. You're fired. The fourth mission. Start over.
Get him out of
You're
there.
the fucking
No,
worst.
much more like a get her done. Yeah. So 3 minutes later, the payload shroud fell away and uncovered a window at Gagarin's feet. Yes, unlike the Americans, they thought of putting a window in the first one. He reported, quote, I can see the Earth. The visibility is good. I almost see everything, end quote. In all, the mission lasted 1 hour and 48 minutes, long enough for Yuri to complete a single full orbit of the planet. So the retro rockets fired perfectly, which is fucking awesome because based on the orbital path he was on, there's no goddamn way he would have come down in 10 days. After the retro fire, the reentry module, which they called the little ball, separated from the main
Why's it got to
service
be
module.
the little ball?
Right? Yes. Well, but so here's the thing. It separates from the main module, or at least it was supposed to. A bundle of wires failed to separate and caused the whole contraption to gyrate like hell all the way down before they broke away. Now, the reentry module was a little ball, so that gyrations didn't fuck up anything except for the G-forces that Gagarin felt on the way down. But somehow, despite 8 to 10 Gs, he managed to stay conscious.
Holy shit.
Okay, but did he put his hands in the air? Because it doesn't matter. Put your hands up.
Right.
I just do
All
not
right,
care.
The roof is on
actually
fire.
is on fire.
The roof
All right, so the main parachute deployed at 10:55 a.m. 10 minutes later, Gagarin was safely on the ground. And I love this
This is the
detail
best.
so goddamn much. This is so USSR. The only witnesses to the event were a farmer and his daughter who just watched a giant metal ball descend from the heavens. Now, needless to say, when a dude pops out in a spacesuit, it freaked him the fuck out. But he calmed him down, told him he was a Russian dude, it wasn't a problem. And then he asked him where the nearest telephone was because that was their goddamn reacquisition plan. When you land, find a phone and call us long distance. We'll accept the charge.
He's doing some Three Stooges shit trying to get his spacesuit into the phone booth. He turns himself sideways and he's bouncing off the side.
Oh, so many pockets, but none for change. Fuck. I need.
Now, there was actually some mystery about the landing for a while. So the Soviet government was concerned that Yuri's records might not count because at the time, the world's governing body for setting standards and keeping records for aircraft required that a pilot land with their vehicle. Right. So Yuri ejected from the main vehicle and parachuted down in a landing module, a fact that they just omitted. They didn't fess up about that, in fact, until they launched Vostok 2 and had to kind of let the world see how they did it. Because the U.S. had already done that. So ultimately, the Eli, you have better French pronunciation than me.
Thank you. Fédération Aéronautique Internationale.
Thank you, exactly.
Crushed it.
They ultimately adjusted the rule so that all of Yuri's records would still count.
That's such a dick move, though, before they did that. Like, he literally orbited the planet in a missile and got back alive. And some French guy's reading the inside of the board game box, being like, sorry, that technically...
So you don't get anything for free parking. It's just a free spot.
They had to change the rules. Otherwise, they have to tell a guy who fought Nazis instead of go to 4th grade that he didn't win their prize. Every French guy they found to make that call just surrendered on sight instead.
All right. Now, of course, this was a huge PR coup for the Soviet government. There was a very clear race between them and the U.S. to reach this milestone, and they won by a lot. They celebrated the accomplishment with the biggest parade the nation had seen since the end of the Second World War. Yuri was an international celebrity as well, traveling to 30 countries in the year following his first flight. The list of countries, by the way, very conspicuously does not include the U.S., where President John F. Kennedy barred Gagarin from visiting due to his overwhelming popularity. All right, so by all accounts, the international celebrity and the touring schedule made something of a chubby drunk out of him.
Heath.
Oh,
No,
True
dude.
story.
That being said, he still was
I'm an international celebrity. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. We Australia. Now, that being said, he was still an integral part of the Soviet space program. He was ultimately named the backup for Soyuz 1, and given his unique experience and his relationship with the mission's pilot, Vladimir Komarov, he was given the job of actually relaying information from ground control. Unfortunately for Komarov, most of what Gagarin had to relay was of the oh fuck variety. Komarov's capsule's parachutes failed to open and it crash landed, and Komarov was killed instantly.
boss, I want to turn in my report. Does have 13 or 14 A's in it? I'm not sure.
Also, Vladimir mentioned anvil in the ship. Why was there anvil?
All right, but after that, the Soviet government barred Gagarin from having any involvement in any future spaceflight. Right? They recognized the PR disaster it would be if the hero of the Soviet Union met a fate like Komarov's. So they gave him a nice cushy job at a desk with nice rounded corners. They wouldn't even let the motherfucker pilot aircraft anymore. It actually didn't sit well with Yuri. He wanted to risk his life. He was that kind of fucking guy. He pushed hard against it. He understood that there was nothing he was going to do to get back in space, but he figured he could at least still pilot aircraft. Eventually, he managed to talk the powers that be into reversing at least that decision, and he was reinstated to fly in February of 1968. Barely a month later, while on a routine training flight, Gagarin's plane went down in bad weather. He and the flight instructor accompanying him were both
On the
killed.
way down, he's like, yep, it's 14 A's. 14 A's and
So now Yuri's death was as mysterious as it was tragic, and there have been conspiracy theories about it in Russia ever since.
Interesting.
So there was a second plane involved somehow in the crash, and even today, the name of that plane's pilot has never been released.
Shocking.
Yeah.
George Bush.
Thank you, Eli.
No, so a lot of people actually suspected Brezhnev of ordering the death after worrying that Gagarin was overshadowing him at public events, and that would not actually be out of character for Brezhnev at all. Still, the consensus, to the extent that there is one, is that it was a tragic accident that likely stemmed from the Soviet tendency to classify shit that did not need to be fucking classified, so much so that two classified planes might have been crossing through the same place at the same time. So now Gagarin has been given basically every award the Soviet government and the Russian government that preceded it had to offer. And in death, he was memorialized around the world. And given that it was Yuri Gagarin, he's also been memorialized off the world. In 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin placed memorial medals commemorating Gagarin and Komarov on the surface of the moon.
Allegedly.
don't you
No,
go there.
they didn't.
Don't you do that.
And if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, what would it be?
Poyakali!
Hashtag YOLO. Are you ready for the quiz?
Poyakali?
All right, Noah. It's a little known fact that Yuri brought his favorite snack onto the shuttle with him. What is the name of that snack? A. Just one M.
Why is it just the one?
B.
So good.
Snitchers. C. Airheads.
All right.
Or D. No longer Swedish fish.
All right. Just based solely on how proud you were of yourself going into it, I'm going to have to go with A, just one M.
Thank you.
All right, Noah, what the Soviets lacked in resources or expertise, they made up for in disdain for human life and sheer balls. So which of the below is a real Soviet-era military project?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
A, the Combat Mole, a combat land submarine that burrowed through the earth and mountains instead of the sea. They made one, it worked, and subsequently exploded.
Nice.
Yeah.
B, the hovercraft tank, a tank that finally answered the question, what if tanks floated? Kind of. C, the Soviet laser pistol, which was less of a laser and more of a really bright flashbulb that you pointed at your enemies while fighting them in space, or the T-55 Progrev T, which was a tank with a jet engine on the face of it instead of a gun, meant to clear landmines by huffing and puffing and blowing them down.
That's actually pretty clever.
Oh, God, those are amazing. I should point out that the last person to die in the Russian space program, 1971. So ever so slightly reject the premise, but all of these are amazing. So I'm going to go with secret answer E. They hated everything.
That's it. That is, of course, always it.
They haven't had a death since 1971. Is that what you said?
That's the last death in the Russian space program.
Man,
yeah.
we're kind of losing that part of the.
Oh yeah, by a lot. No, we're the ones keeping it at 3.2%. Yeah, no, but the reason is because the space shuttle was a stupid fucking idea, and we killed a lot of people before we were willing to admit that.
One more question for you, Noah. What was 5'2" Yuri Gagarin's nickname in flight school? A. High chair force. B.
Fantastic.
F-15. C.
Phenomenal.
C. Small timeter. Or D. Sawed off Top Gun.
All right, those are all phenomenal as I've come to expect, but I gotta throw my love towards B. F-15.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's sawed off Top Gun. Sorry. No, you're close, though. You're close. Yeah.
Regardless, Cecil was going to be the winner. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tom, you're doing it next week.
All right. What?
All right. Well, for Tom, Noah, Cecil, and Eli, I'm Heath. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear Tom and Cecil on Cognitive Dissonance, and you can hear Eli, Noah, and myself on God Awful Movies, The Scathing Atheist, Skeptocrat, and D&D-. And if you'd like to haggle yourself up from our price of $0, you can make a financial donation at patreon.com/citationpod. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, listen to past episodes, connect with us on social media, or take a look at the show notes, check out citationpod.com.
Yuri!
You did it, comrade. You survived.
Yes, in spite of really significant odds against me.
Yes, you fuck your ass, I did. You guys like that? That's my new thing. I thought of it while I was in space. You fuck your ass, I did. I'm going to have shirts made, I was thinking.
Really glad you're alive. Yeah.
Yeah, you fuck your ass, I'm alive.